All right, let's settle into Supta Baddha Konasana. Have your bolster supported on a blanket and a blanket on top of the short end of the bolster. Sit in front of it so that you're on the firm ground, and you'll take a belt, make a big loop. So you want to find that this loop is supporting your pelvis and the connectivity of your hip, kind of thigh span. So what I like to focus on in this, since it's such an ordinary beginning of restorative, that as I take the belt over my head around my hips, or I guess you could start it getting the belt on anyway, but I want to bring the feet so that as they go together, maybe I'll put blocks under in the beginning. Okay, blocks under my thighs, sand nearby. And when you scoop up your feet, get a feeling that your legs are not overworking to be held right now. So if you don't use the blocks, you might get a feeling of letting the thighs center down so that inside of the hip line can start to loosen up. And then as I tighten the belt down, I want to have the belt so it's around the back of the pelvis, right? It's low, it's at the eyebrows of the buttocks, so it is pretty low. The buckle is nearby, so you can easily unbuckle if there is a need to. And then as you need to move the blocks even higher, perhaps to feel the contour of the skin, and as you lower back, you might feel the flesh is a little different on each of the leg supports, right? So I like to encourage that you take the time to fuss around, and the belt can be pretty tight, right? You might not want to make it so tight that it is uncomfortable. That's not realistic, but enough that it's pressing. Just like we use the sandbag to press, not too high, that we're working on removing the tense breathing in the chest area, the upper chest zone. We're working on the breath lower. So let's use a sandbag, and we'll take it across the rib intersection. You can let the sand kind of slouch. Sometimes this is kind of nice to let the sandbag. I've never heard of sand slouching, but the bag can kind of reach around the ribs themselves, and you can kind of feel that coating. Okay, the sand coat. Now, if the blocks are not quite supportive, you might need to kind of inch your hips downwards. You might need to fidget. But if you feel like you're slightly kind of pinned to the bolster, that would be good, because you'll loosen up in time after being pinned into the bolster. Spine is rising out of the back of the pelvis with comfort since it's on a relaxed position. And then feel the arms moving outwards and down. And you might keep centering your sandbag so it doesn't fall down to your hips, but you'll feel when the arms are down and resting, the movement of your breath. So feature that length on your inhale and the response on the exhale. And let the movement of the breath be explored, right? Both sections of breathing, both segments, I suppose, the in-breath and the out-breath. Now, with the simplicity, letting the body be supported, but also feeling the body restoring on top of the props. Your props under you, slightly on you, kind of pressing into you to access balance. So track the movement of the diaphragm. So you can feature the nuance of the in and out breath, resting the eyes. And internally relaxing the heart. Now recognize that the spine and the paraspinals are able to center. You don't need to put any more intensity on trying to lengthen the spine. This might not be the shape for that, but feeling that it's essentially centering. So I want you to feel like the space behind the heart, the spine itself, is resting as the heart is resting. Relax the feet. They don't have to effort. They're being held together with the belt. And can you let the sand stay on? If you don't have a sandbag, still the same instruction, but as I move the arms back, I want you to get a feeling of stretching your arms open, lifting, hovering, lifting up higher, and then stretch the hands back behind you to interlace your fingers at their roots. And at first, it might be you have to turn the hands inside out in your mind, but feeling the buoyancy in the ribs, if it feels like they're being kind of pulled back, taut, right, in the body, kind of pressing, feel if you interlace and turn the hands inside out and push the hands towards the ceiling. Feel the whole back plate of the ribs, and then stretch the center body long, reaching the arms back. Feel the armpit chest stretching. Relaxing the breath through the nose. Okay, relax the grip of the hands. Slide the sandbag away, unbuckle, and we'll connect the right foot to the left knee. So I want you to slide the belt off of the legs, shift the blocks beside you, lift the right foot up, cross it to the left knee. It's easy to kind of fuss around to feel a little bit more simple balance with your spine, but notice even if your feet were still kind of in the sole that place where they were together, maybe do less, right, of sliding things around. See if you can lift that right foot to that left knee, and then take a ball, and maybe today you let the ball be a little bit lower besides your left thigh versus up to your hip. So I want you to kind of work on the elongation factor here. Now, it doesn't mean you can't go back to the ball up at the greater trochanter. You could. But I'm going to place the ball so it just conveniently lands at the thigh. There's a space there, right? So I just put the ball there. And then lean the left leg into that ball so the outside of the left foot relaxes. So it kind of spins open. So the footing is left foot is on its side, side foot. Okay. Right foot, some of us, the foot will maybe touch to the ground. Okay. Might happen. So reach for the right knee. And if it's a little, I can feel the pressure of the ball and some sense of an awkward pressure on my left leg. So what I'm going to work with is guiding my left foot a little closer and kind of see if that changes. A little bit of a pressure point is not a bad thing. A little bit of acupressure there. And as the right arm reaches back besides your head. Yeah, so we're going to work a little bit on gallbladder meridian. I'm teaching a bit more yin yoga these days. So since this is the start of spring, this week is liver gallbladder meridian focus. It's pretty traditional the whole week. So we'll do a bit of that. But the line of the gallbladder, right, that meridian line is on the side, lateral part of the leg. So the ball for me is besides my left thigh, so it's pushing. So I feel it's a little bit like something's nagging my leg, I have to admit. But when I get to the other side, it will release it. So it's going to be okay. All right, so the right arm could be besides your head or down to the floor. Okay, now come back through center. And as you uncross, I want you to place the ball between the knees, squeeze into it, make sure it's actually there, okay? Inhale, arms stretching back, belly relaxes. Okay. I actually admit I did not squeeze the ball on that one. It was too much effort. So relax the grip on the ball when you breathe in. And then as you exhale, squeeze the ball and come up about halfway. So you're still touching your bolster. And you can barely talk. Okay. Come back and feel that there is a little bit of a C shape with the spine. Okay, take the ball, release the left arm, lift the left foot, cross it to the right knee, and place the ball next to the right thigh. Remember, it's thigh versus hip. So as I lean the body weight into that ball, one side might feel different than the other. I know the meridian line might be different pressure points on the second side in some way. So you might want to try to find that same spot. And the right hand holds the left knee as mentioned. Feel when the waist is centering. You're not trying to twist the torso to the right, really, nor the left. You're centering the back of the heart, and the left arm is in that motion, and then it finds a still point back behind you. So the weight of your head resting on the blanket. If it's not enough height under your head, you can tuck the blanket up so that scrunch it up a little bit more. That's fine. Should feel like your neck is able to rest. So if your chin is jutting up, then likely you need a little more padding under your head. We don't want the chin pushing down to the chest though. Okay, not excessively. So feel when your right foot, side of the right foot is on the ground. It's not foot down, it's side of the foot. So we have side lateral awareness of the body, the side body. Hold. And get a feel if your lower back is twisting. I want you to be careful to let the spine stay strongly centered. Not sure what that exactly means, strongly centered, serious centering. Okay, breathing. Okay, now the right arm is going to guide out to the side, side body, lower it down, release the grip with the hand, and now we're going to bring the position back to ball between the knees. Okay, strongly centered. Okay, stretch the arms back, relax the core. Okay, that means on the inhale, belly lifts, exhale, belly centers back. The spine is long. Okay, the days are long. Okay, so squeeze into the ball and relax the grip. Get confused. Squeeze into the ball and relax the grip. Okay, now inhale, don't squeeze the ball. Exhale, squeeze the ball and come up. If your feet need to slide forward, that's fine. Move back, relax the belly, don't squeeze the ball. Come on up, squeeze. Okay, so now let's figure out the tuning with the breath. So inhale, back on the bolster. Exhale, squeeze the ball. So my hope is that when you lower back, you can go slower than this if you like, that you relax the grip on the ball. This is challenging. And then when you come up, you squeeze into the ball. Okay, now last one. Now when you lower back, and then when you come up, just recognize where there's pressure, even around the ribs, and then remove the ball. And let's turn so that we're going to face behind you. The instructions will be very clear. So let's take our blanket for this one. So it's under the knees. Shift the bolster across the mat. Hands pressing. And then I want you to actually lean forward so the front of the hips are on the bolster across. Now, if my hands are this far back, it's a little tough for me on my wrist. So I'm going to turn my hands out and my hands or my arms stretch out to the edge of my mat and more like seal. But what's important here is to let the knees be apart and the feet are not close together. They're not hips distance, they're far outwards, more like seal. And then move the chest gently forward. Feel the natural extension of the spine. This is beyond natural extension. Now this is an active extension. And then noticing if you tend to keep the glutes toned, right? Sometimes this could be helpful for our back so that we don't necessarily relax the glutes, but we attend to lifting up the heart, and that directs kind of the travel into the upper leg muscles. Okay, you can let the feet relax. They don't have to hook under. Okay, now as you shift back, this I find tricky to have my feet relaxed and I shift back to my hands and knees. So shift the hands back to about shoulder distance and round your back into cat. Inhale, chest forward, spine arching, lift up your gaze. So try to lift up, looking up, stretch the eyes. Exhale, round the back, scooping, moving the tail and the chin towards the chest. I guess the tail isn't moving towards your chest, is it? But it's just the chin, not the tail and chin. Inhale, opposite, stretch the core. Exhale, chin towards the chest, round in the back. Okay, now find downward dog, let the toes hook under. You might really stretch the toes, kind of like you're trying to scoot your foot towards the back of the knee, even though that's not going to happen, but you really are stretching your toes. Lift up the knees and feel when the heels are lifted, and you have the option to keep them that way or to alternate and kind of pedal out the legs a bit, alternate bending. You can choose either to keep the heels just a little lifted and stay here or pedal out. Okay. After pedaling for a little bit or keeping the heels up, I want you to try to let the heels just lower towards the floor. They may not completely touch down, but feeling the bottom of the feet and the sensation at the hip crease, which is kind of mystery direction, I find that the front of the upper thigh has a mystery direction here. Okay. Now, when you shift back forward to basically an upright push-up pattern, I want you to lower down onto the knees again, and then let the toes relax. Lift up the chest forward, feel a natural arch, feel the tops of the feet relaxing, and then shift back and unroll the blanket on the other side, okay? Slide that away so it's on your mat, but it's back. And then you're going to, let's see, this other blanket can go to the side. We will be using it soon. But I want you to roll, so now you're facing back the way you were. You're going to shift to sit on the bolster and then come on to the back of the pelvis on the bolster, and have your belt nearby. Let's see, you're going to need a belt, you're going to need a sandbag, and lift up, and you're going to need a ball. Okay. Awkward, huh? Okay, place the ball between the knees and let the legs have that elevation. We'll all find our way here in a few moments. Okay, make a dent in your bolster. Purposely let the body weight center on it. And when you get the feeling of the back of the pelvis and its kind of its livelihood here, right after we've done an interesting series so far for the concentration of hips to feet. So when you bend through the legs, squeeze into the ball. Make sure it's in an appropriate spot. Sometimes if it's too far in the center, those muscles don't activate the same. Okay, as between the knees. Arms are open, knees to the right. Okay, let that left hip kind of pop up. Hopefully it doesn't pop, it just pops up. And then back, so you're smoothing out the back of the pelvis, and then knees to the left. Smooth out the back of the pelvis. And then back to center. pelvis backing smoothed out, side to side. Go at your own pace. We'll take a few more moments on this. If you're not working on pushing into the ball, that's okay. But I use it as a spacer to support my back, but it's also an interesting layer in my leg concentration. And if you get into this pattern of movement, you might feel like when you're in center, you're not squeezing the ball. And when you let the knee shift to the side, you kind of push into it. Right? In the last little shape we were doing, we were prone on the bolster. We were trying to figure out if we were squeezing the glutes or not. This one, they're pretty free. But we're glute free. We'll try to get there by the end of class. Glute free. Okay, now come back into the center. Let the legs lift up. So good for the whole body, right? To get upside down. Circle the feet. Get a feeling of moving the feet to turn out. The ball should help you isolate, so it's just feet that move and go the inside direction. And just kind of scan once you stop the circling, if the feet feel kind of good, just being in this weightless position, weightless feet, right? You're not putting any weight on them. That's the way they want to be, maybe sometimes. Not being stepped on. Okay. So if I center on the bolster, now I'm going to let my feet be relaxed. I'm going to squeeze into the ball. Hopefully it doesn't pop out, because that can happen on this one. Squeeze. So they're going to pop that way or this way, I'm not sure. Okay. Try to let the feet relax. You might do a little foot test. Make sure that they're simply neutral. Okay, now get your belt. Give your feet a few more moments. Get your belt. It's likely unbuckled at this point, and I think we can, let's buckle it up. Let's buckle it again so we can create that loop. Sorry for the sound. It will be a sound for that it, huh? Wake it up. All right, so make a loop bigger than the last one. So you might have to reset the spacing on the belt. Okay. Now, as you flow the legs back towards your chest, some of you have done like cloud pose, halasana. This has a similar kind of circulation into it. Now, as you bend through the legs, take the ball out and make sure you're on that bolster. You're not falling off of it on the other side. And let's scoop up the right foot with our belt. Okay, so lift up the right foot, of course, left leg down. First things first, sand. Okay, now we'll put some sand on the left thigh. There's some days I have a moment when I'm teaching, I think, or when I'm just practicing. This is like a little science class here, this little body laboratory I'm working on. So sand is on the front of that left thigh, and when you center the pelvis as much as you can, I know the bolster is a really great centering equipment, but when you hold on, feel the left leg, try to let that find a position where it may not stay straight up the foot, but you might have to push a little bit out to that left side, just a little till you can feel that it's okay just to let it be. If this bothers your left ankle, put a blanket under it. That's an option, although you have to get up and get your blanket under the left ankle. It might be helpful. Okay. So now when you're pulling with the hands on the belt, feel the leg kind of push into it. And then slide the hands to make that loop and reach it to the occiput. So think of the shelf at the back of your head. If the belt is twisted on your head, that can be a bummer. It's okay if it's twisted on the side, but not under your head at all. It's best if it's not twisted, but I don't think it would be bad juju for your alignment if it has a little bit of a kink in it. So feature the brain float. Now, pushing my chin down is never really a good idea. So I'm working on the belt to be on a good spot for my head so that I can let my head lean back into the belt. That feels great. So the right calf is stretching. You can make the belt looser, tighter. Feel the arms spread out. Breathing. It only helps. And your foot can be in a direction that is different than this, meaning you could have the belt higher under the foot to the ball of the foot, could be lower to the heel. I have mine kind of the arch, kind of almost to the very center, but not quite that all the way down, but feels like it's just the right way for my head to lean back. Okay, now feature the movement of the lower abdomen. Feeling that moving below the navel, so it's low diaphragmatic breath. Take a few more moments. This might feel very site specific in the legs. Okay, now hands are at the back of your head. Okay, actually first, sand goes away. I just put it on my torso because that's a good place to put the sand for the circulation right into my digestive tracts. So as I hold the back, I'm going to slide the left foot in. I kind of like to push down into my foot here and just kind of feel that surge of awareness in the right leg. Okay, now I lift up the left foot, lift it up into the belt, take a shift so the right leg lowers down. And then once the right thigh is extending, okay, your chin probably moves a little forward on this to get started. So it's okay, right? You don't want to create more tension by pushing your head back too quickly. So I've got my sand packed on the front of the right thigh. And then I encourage you to let your head lean back. Yeah, you gotta play with it. You don't want the belt under your neck at all. And definitely probably not around your ears. Although that sounds kind of tempting to try. Just to figure out what that would feel like. Maybe that would make it really nice and quiet. Okay. Spread out the arms or have them a little bit lower than the heart. Personal choice. Some people like to have them straight back. Okay. Now with that right leg, finding its home here. If the foot is obviously turning out a lot, then your work would be to move the right leg a little bit out. So it's better to have it out and the foot kind of angles in center. Okay, now feeling the weight bearing into that right thigh. Feel the weight of the head lean back. Simply stretch the back of the left thigh fully. And if your foot just happens to have the belt around about the same spot, just naturally, it's interesting. It's interesting to notice how the ankle responds, how the calf, even the awareness around the knees. One knee might hyperextend more than the other, so you've got to attend to not only the alignment, but the breath too. Don't get bogged down by the details. Okay, take a few more moments, get a feeling. Now, as the hands reach to the belt, last time we held it for a little longer than this side, right? We just swung the foot up on the left side, but immediately on this one. So head back, relax your head on the blanket. Then reach both hands up to the belt. Let's just keep the sand on the right thigh because it's such good response into that hip flexor, because that's what we're going to do next in the side stage, is to stretch that right hip flexor. So feel where the left foot is flexing. If it really bothers you, you don't have to follow every of these instructions, right? Maybe you scoot your belt lower towards the heel, right? That's a pretty wise sensation I feel in my hamstring. Okay, some of you might need to bend the knee and even take the belt off and hold the back of the leg. That's okay too, if it's bothering your foot. As you feel the shift, you're going to bend through that left knee. And let's take the sand off the right thigh. Let's see, I want you to have your sand kind of drop it over on the left side. Careful of your shoulder. Hold onto the belt with the right hand and cross the left leg over to the right and kind of steer so the side, the lateral sensation here. So as you're pulling onto that right, the left foot, sorry, you're pulling over to the right. And I want you to kind of feel that your heel on that left foot kind of stretches across. There's a nice line through the left side of the pelvis. Really feel that line. Okay, simple. Gallbladder meridian here. This one's pretty spicy. Okay, let the leg extend so there's more full length versus bend. Okay, now bend the left knee. Well, that length didn't last long. Okay, sorry. Come back up center, switch the right foot up into the belt. The right leg is basically extending, lengthening. And then cross using the left hand to hold the belt over to the right. Sorry, right leg to the left. Okay, as long as you can correct yourself, it's okay. All right, so lengthen. Now the bolster should feel like, oh, this is good. This is great for my torso circulation, digestive tract, side band, liver, gallbladder, busy stuff here. Okay, it's time. All right, so get a feeling when there's length in the side of the leg. It's such a rare thing to feel during the day, right? The side of the leg. Elongating, it might be the front. When you stand up, it might be the back when you lean forward. Okay. Now we're going to keep going left. So you're going to just simply bend the right knee, slide the belt off, put it aside, and left foot slides in, roll to the left, slide down, and get your other blanket, please, and stack it on. So you have two quarter fold blankets. Maybe someone has a fancier way to fold their blankets. Share next time. Okay, so now get us a ball. I like the block on the other side. I don't always use it the same way though. And I guess you could stack two blocks. That might be interesting, but we'll take a ball on the inside of the right leg. If you don't use a ball and you can let the leg kind of swing back, just be sure that the right leg, it's reaching back. This is something to get across today. So the side of the leg is stretching as well. And lean down with your head on the blanket. Then get your sand. And as we're getting used to doing this for years now at home, putting our sand on, you want to get a feeling of where the support is interesting for your breath. Yeah, if the sand is on my hip, it's nice too. I do like both approaches. I don't think one I like better than the other, but right now I'm interested, since we were on our back with our feet up, would be now to get into the rush of breath into the ribs. They were kind of flattened out previously, in a previous moment. The right hand is settled on a block, or if you want to move the block a little bit kitty corner, that might help. Maybe I'll get the attention of my cat over there, huh? Okay, so if you let the spine just feel like it settles, it doesn't have to do any fancy dancy movements. Let the body weight on that left side. Let your head relax into the blanket. That's probably your final instruction. Relax your brain. Just let it be. And feel the movement of the breath. Feel the movement chamber of the ribs. You likely feel them as a pack, right? Versus singling out a rib. There's so many. So yeah, they kind of work in tandem as you draw the oxygen in and you move the ribs. You know, if it's possible for you to feature some movement kind of dialogue in the chest area, if the shoulder's a little tired of it, you can always lower it down. That's no problem. But feel if you can move your hand from overhead to opening a little bit through the chest. This can be slight. I don't want you to necessarily drop your sand here, but feel how you eventually can roll a little bit to the back ribs. You might go to the back of your head as well. You have to go with the whole body. The sand could fall. That's a good sign. And then you're going to roll. So you want to feel like this rib cage, it's like this whole upper body is kind of like seaweed, right? You want it to kind of be fluid. And then you'll roll back your belly to the bolster, not all the way a navel down, but come up. And then let's switch sides. So let's roll to our shift to our hips. Take a windshield wiper for a moment. Knees are wide, so their feet are as wide as the sticky mat, and knees go side to side. This would be nice if you could just let the body put weight into the hips as your knees guide side to side. This is as important as the pose, is the movement. Right? You got to move into a pose, right? There's got to be some transition work. Right, so I think I'm still trying to figure out if I like this or not for the glutes, but there are days I can put more weight into the glutes and the buttock area and feel like it moves and stretches the tissue. Now go right to the other side, Sage, and we'll take a ball on the inside for some of us. I know it's not everyone, but you'll lean down to your bolster. See if you can get right into it because the ribs are warmed up. Notice, let the ribs stay nice and warmed up in the practice. Okay, that's why these side sage, sleeping sage are just good ones for rib cage. I mean, even if you don't have any issues with congestion or what have you, this is a really good thing to do for the breathing muscles. The side sage, we don't do sleeping sage often, and I don't think we ever do it in the Zoom class, do we? Because you can't get the sand on your shoulder blades, huh? We'll add it in. We'll add it in sometime. Okay. We just won't use the sand on it. So left arm reaches overhead. If you tend to roll in the back of your head, okay, see if you can find what's comfortable for you. It doesn't have to be exactly what I'm mentioning. You might be on your ear with your right side of your head. You might be on the back of your head. But if you strive extra with the hand on the block, it might feel nice for the arm to get that sensation. If it's kind of a dull pressure and it's just kind of stubborn in the armpit area to stretch, that's one thing. If you have pain, right, an issue in the rotator cuff, that's a whole nother reaction. You might have to have your arm down by the side or on the bolster. You might be different one side to the next. If it's okay to stretch it, I would stretch it. Okay, let the rib stretch. If the sand almost falls off, kind of pull it back up, even if it's kind of lopsided. And using the sand as resistance for your breathing muscles. Ribs expand and contract. Okay, now you're going to let that left arm stretch open so the sand probably falls off. Your knee is motioning towards the right, so when you shift your pelvis, now sometimes we'll tend to grip our back. I don't want to put that word in there, but see if you can flow so the ribs touch the bolster, and you'll keep that right knee going towards the bolster and try to hug that so your back stretches versus tightens. So you're going to lean into the bolster and then push with your hands to come up, and let's move the blankets right next to your bolster. Grab the block and sit on top, not of the block, but on your bolster. Okay, all right. So here we are in the seated field now. So, all right, get your garments so they're comfortable on your body. And let's cross the legs. So the left foot is crossed forward to the right. You know, if this ever is bothersome to your ankles on this kind of work, you can always add a blanket on top of the bolster or under the bolster. I've done that a little bit. I took a class the other day and I added more height just to see if it felt easier. It's okay to make things easier so that you have more kind of a nice skillful level of lift, inner brightness. So we add, or maybe it's inner heightness. Inner highness. Okay, take a sandbag to the left upper leg. Use anything under your legs. If you decide you need a ball is probably all you're going to get because you're going to need your blocks here. So you could put a ball under probably the right knee because the left leg is sort of caught with the right leg hooked under it. This is kind of an interesting pattern. So it's like a box position between the knees and the hips. Although I imagine most of us, the knees are wider than the hips on this one. You know, if you can bring them in closer, okay, that's kind of one thing people work towards. But I think when you get more mature in your body, you probably are going to let them go out. Okay, then take a block set with hands, a set of hands, a set of blocks, move them forwards. And you're going to lean into it so that there is a little depth here. Now I want you to, there's two options here. Some are going to go forward with the block. Some are going to go to the right. Of course, this is a little more intense if you go to the right. It's stretching to the side channel. And now lean into that right side. You can relax your feet. You might even kind of slide your hands on the one of the feet and just make sure that that foot is relaxed. And now lean into it, whether your blocks are forward or they're to the right. It could be either. Like I mentioned, you do not have to prioritize the more challenging one. But it is interesting to feel how the sitting bones react here. Okay, now let the spine feel like it's developing kind of a new current, like an energy current in the spine when you go forward. Kind of brings us, it creates some movement in the back. Okay, now we're going to take a seated spinal twist and then we're going to go into pigeon. So I want you to kind of notice that you have that in your mindset. Okay, I'm going to be working on the hips. and my spine. So when you go to the twist, you're going to bring the hands back up to the legs and move the sand to the right thigh. Okay. You can take the twist like this, right hand to left knee and twist. This is pretty basic, right? This is okay. You could move any ball that's under your right knee and then slide the left foot over the right thigh, placing the bottom of the foot on the floor. Right foot is relaxed. You can tap it a little bit, hook the right elbow to the left knee and go here. Yeah, it's kind of interesting. Both of them are a different array of movement. So there is this circulation focus so that you use the core of the body to create the twist. I know we're all guilty of using our arms too much for twisting. So feel if you can line up the inhale and that inner lining of the waist and the spine. And then find the rotation on the exhale. And let it be really subtle, like you've got a ways to go. Even if you're hooking the elbow, you might find, okay, I'm turning left. There's always further to go. Now don't take the fullest extent of the twist. Feel where you're landing in the pelvis. It's crucial for pigeon pose coming up so that you're centered on that right hip. Okay, now feel when you turn back forward. And if you had the leg crossed over the right leg, I want you to come back up to the center so the left foot is in front of the right knee. Okay, take the sand away off the leg. And now we'll take the left leg and stretch it behind us. So it goes straight back. I know you know the drill on this one, but you know, sometimes planning the sequence, there is a reason, there's a cumulative effect of from the poses here. So when I lean down into my hip, honestly, I feel more into my arms than I feel just as much in my arms here. So if you can lower down, and then maybe the elbows go on blocks, maybe they go on the floor, or maybe another bolster or a blanket is fine. If you got other blankets and pillows, I bet you have some more in the house. You can always add more props. So lean into it and be caring for your back, especially kind of that back rib area. If that's feeling like it's getting a little bit more tense, like it's kind of locking in there, kind of loosen that up by breathing in the ribs. You can always let the arms go lower. You can spread the arms forward. You can push out the pose a bit, but it's okay to find something kind of neutral here. Stretching the ribs, centering the hip. Okay, now try to come out of this with the back a little bit more, I don't want to say rounded, but a little bit of flexion, right? So instead of trying to push the chest forward, I want you to feel kind of you're hunkering down a bit here. So you have the hands close to the leg, more of this kind of neutral between cat-cow position. Walk the hands to the right. Okay, swing the left leg forward. And then change the crossing of the leg. So right leg crosses forward of left. Sand on the right thigh. If your knees feel different on this side, like you're like, oh, a little different, use some support. So it's kind of nice to go from one side to the next and just remark on the difference in the knee angle. You might be just exactly the same and just perfect, but I just try to feel like I'm giving equal attention to the second side, even though my attention span is less than it was on the first side. So I'm centering and then trying to feel my shoulders back for a moment, heart centered and up. Just give it some time. Notice what areas kind of feel like they're tightening up. It happens. breath happens, and then lean forwards. Okay, use some blocks, either straight in the front, or maybe you like to zigzag around. I mean, maybe you like to have your hands on the legs and kind of swirl around. There's all kinds of ways to contribute to circulation in the hip. This side, you might be kind of sliding off your bolster, right? That happens too. You just can't stay on it. Okay, so lean in, hands over to the left with the blocks or hands forward. Yeah, still feeling a little bit of height in the back of the pelvis, but it is being pushed up with the bolster. And just simply exist in the shape that you've chosen with a simple cross-legged box pose. Feel if you can be grounded in the hips and the positioning of the knees. So there's a little openness of the knees, which contributes to that circulation in the legs, the hips. Right, if I have my knees just straight forward, like if I'm sitting in a chair, right, that's not going to be helpful for my hips. But it's rather important that we do that sometimes to do our whatever we do, to sit and discuss or sit and do things. But it's nice to sit on the ground in this position for our hips. If you can add this to your habit. Okay, now when we come up, we're going to bring the hands to the legs and then see if you can use that lift of the chest. Yeah, so there's a natural arch in the spine. Lifty, lifty. Sand over to the left thigh and then twisty. Okay, I actually like this version. Just sand over, kind of pulls my hip over there, and then I go here. Okay, I don't mind this version. I feel a little bit kind of wider ability to rotate my ribs. Okay, if I cross the leg and remove the ball, cross it over the right leg over the left. There is kind of a nice discipline to this one too. It's a little bit more shoulder work, a little bit more twist in the spine. So the vertebral spaces, right? There's more of that imbibition, right? So that circulation between the spine parts. But you know, some of us, this is the one that we land in that feels a little more maybe easeful and caring. So this can work too. You choose. If that shoulder behind you, you can peek at it and it's rolling in. Just see, you know, the part of the reason it is there's stiffness, there's strength, but also I would find that probably the shoulder movement in is that my chest is tight, right? So it's like opening my chest. So it's not necessarily to complain to your shoulder. It's just a part of it, right? It's the bones, right? It's the flesh in the front, the connective tissue that you're trying to stretch. Okay, if your right hand isn't like this, you can move it farther back. You can reach it around to the sandbag handle. Some people really like that one. Again, the shoulder rolls in usually on that, so you have to work a little extra to keep the chest open. Okay, that one feels pretty good on my right side of my upper back. Yeah, so feel the waist rotate. Try to relax the abdomen with the breath. You don't want to tighten the belly when you're doing a spinal twist so that you can help strengthen the diaphragm. Otherwise, you would tighten it up and it couldn't do its natural movement. So you want to let the abdomen relax. Move with the breath. Turn back forwards. Take off the sand off to the side. Take away the ball. And we're going to get a little bit of a shift. So we'll take that right leg and move it back. And when you stretch the right leg back, you can get a feeling of that we came into the side a little different. You may have done the same, but when you lean into that left thigh, you know, find the progression of weight into the left hip. Okay. You can keep the arch. This isn't bad. This isn't a bad option. If your back doesn't complain, it's fine. Okay. But if you feel like it's a little tense, then you might lower down your elbows and smooth out that circulation in your ribs all the way into your back and your neck. I think this is my preferred version, leaning into it, but still using a little bit of height under my arms to maintain that natural arch of the spine. Breathing. Okay, so feeling where your hip is centering on that left side. Okay, now as you reach the chest forward, you'll slide the hands back, whether those blocks or not. What I want us to work our way towards is the wall now. So you're going to either, you can step the left foot back, right? You could take it from pigeon pose here and then move the left foot back and pedal the legs out. I'm going to simply sit into my left hip for me, and I'm going to take my right leg forward and then turn. So I'm facing the other way, and then I'm going to pedal out my legs. Okay, so sliding a blanket under my knees. This is important, I think, for most everyone. Something under your knees. And then take the bolster, turn it, okay? Feel the feet to the wall, so that might mean you have to shift your props a bit more. And I want you to reach the hips forward so that your thighs, and so at least the bolster is in kind of my middle thigh, the base of the bolster, so it is touching my legs when I lean into it. And we did this position before today. I mean, today we did it when we had the bolster horizontally across. But this one, you can keep the spine. You want to stay up for a moment, because once you go down, it's more challenging to get back up. True. So I'm pushing my feet into the wall. The knees are lifted a little bit up from the ground. So I'm really targeting the circulation into the back body. Okay. Now lower the belly and the lower chest down. Try to keep the upper chest up. So you're not smushing your chest right now. So the hands are going to slide a little forward. Feel your elbows down. Try to keep the chest reaching. Okay, you can let your head nod. You can tilt your ear to the shoulder. But feel if your heels have moved away from the wall, can you still feel the balls of the feet pressing into the wall? The knees a little bit up. Mine are completely up, and that's best for my back. Feel the belly push into the bolster. Massaging the organs. Okay, now lower the knees down. Kind of feel how then the knees lower. The glutes, right, the buttock area relaxes. So try it again. Let the knees lift up and push back into the wall. And kind of feel the circulation. It's pretty nice for your back to have that control. And then when you lower the knees down, then relax the low back and the hips. Maybe wag your tail a little bit so you know you're doing that. The back pelvis is relaxing a bit. Okay. So we'll slide the hands back. Okay, your glutes will fire again. I know they're going to activate. So you're going to lift the heart forward. Do the good work here. And then when you come back into the hips, let's slide our bolster to the side. Take a block on each hand, okay? And make the block height to the second setting or the third setting. And feel the back of the pelvis. Try to make sure that that area, you don't have to feel the back of your pelvis, but the awareness there is relaxed. And then we'll reach the weight into our left leg and step the right foot forward between the blocks. And it may be farther forward from the blocks actually. Lean forward and feel the length in the front of that left thigh. Okay. So when you're reaching that left thigh and extending the hip flexor, feel the stretch through the left quad. Breathe. Okay, let's keep it as a low lunge right now. Just keeping the knee down. If it hurts your knee, you can always lift it a little bit, but make sure there's a blanket under your left knee so you can stretch your quad. Okay, so feeling where that lunge is extending, that thigh tissue is stretching. Okay. Now, when you stretch your body weight back, you're going to lean back to a reverse lunge and let the right foot, the toes lift up. So the flex of the foot, you can lower your blocks or slide them farther back. I like to sometimes have my blocks at the second height, even though it's makes it a little easier maybe. But I work on trying to flex the right foot, toes up. Just keep that. It's a foot stand. It's a kickstand move for your foot. Doesn't make a lot of sense, but that's okay. We stopped making sense a while ago, I guess. Okay, so feeling now how the flesh of your foot, right? It's probably, it has some stiffness to it naturally. But spring is here, so maybe it will loosen up in the next few months. It'll warm up. So now press into the heel and then slide the weight forward into the foot. Use your blocks high up and then push off the left foot. Make sure you're close enough to the wall so you can actually push. Step it forward, take a forward fold. So the feet, hips distance, the hips moving back, your head moving straight down to the floor, the crown of your head. So you can hold your elbows. You can hold the back of the legs. And you can also simply dangle your arms. So feeling the spine naturally stretching. Relax your head. Okay, now bend through the legs. Feel if you can contribute to the next lunge into letting the spine still stay with some length. So I have my hands on the blocks. It doesn't mean that it can't arch, right? The length is part of arching. So when you step the right foot back, you're going to feel the heel touch the wall, I hope, or kick the wall maybe. And then motion so that right thigh, as it edges itself and moves down, you're going to feel the left knee reach forward. So hopefully that forward bend kind of loosen up the spine. This one kind of feels good to shrug the shoulders with a little. If the blocks are high enough, you can do that. And just kind of smoosh around your back. So it's not just a leg thing. Yeah, you can launch into a deeper lunge. And feeling that movement as you lean back. So that left foot, the toes are up. The blocks can go a little lower. This one might be nice. Some people don't like the blocks at all. They put their hands down. And some people like to hold the bottom of the foot and pull the toes back. It's up to you. I like kind of really basic techniques. So I can feel that the hips are reaching back. My left leg is full of effort and energy on the back of the leg. Yeah, I can kind of move my hips a little side to side, but feel that there's focus for my good left leg. This good left leg, let it stretch. Okay, now good work. Bend the left knee. Now this time we're gonna just shift back into our left leg. So come back, you could take a child's pose. Some of you probably crave that. Don't do that very often in these sessions, because I know everyone has a little different knee issues. So if you want to take a wide knee, child's pose, hips are back, hips back towards the feet, hands stacked, and let your forehead relax. If you're good without the child's pose, you can let the arms be forward, stretch the hips back if that's too much for the knee to sit back into the feet. If you can do it, it's okay to support that stretch at the top of the feet. Okay. You know, as we take a few more moments here, those of us in full child's pose, stay centered. You can always use your bolster under your forehead. And I mean forehead, not right in the center of your head. Or on your eyes, right? It has to be just at the tip. Okay. So now we come up and we're going to shift. So I want us to take our bolster over to the side. So we're going to turn around onto our back. You're going to, actually, let's do bridge pose without the bolster today so we can kind of move along. So we're going to take our bolster to the right side of our mat where our feet are going to be to the wall. Okay. So toss your other blanket for the last pose. We'll keep that nearby. We're going to shift our body so we're close to the wall. At first, very little blanket, if any. I don't want you to overuse the blanket here. And you'll place your feet up to the wall. I like using a blanket for this one. Okay, place the ball between the knees. And again, you can come closer to the wall if you decide you can't quite get traction. Okay, now push into your feet at the wall, lift the hips up, arms overhead. And then lower the spine down. Yeah, let yourself keep moving with this one. So it's not a held position, it's alternating drawbridge. Hips lift up, strengthen your lower back. It's a great lumbar support with the ball between the knees. If you don't have a ball, you can use a block. I think the ball is a little lighter and it's a responsive surface. So if you squeeze it, it doesn't mind. The block won't really respond. Blocks are they're unresponsive. Okay, that's why they're blocked. All right, so feel the spine lower and then bring your knees to your chest. Like all the way as far as they'll go in, like you did in child's pose. This is a little easier on the knee joint, right? Versus child. Okay, now take the ball out. Actually, you're going to need to keep it nearby. And I want you to take the right knee to bending, let it lean over towards the bolster, swing the left leg onto the bolster, and place the ball to the sacrum. Okay, add a sandbag to the outer left thigh. And feel that approach of support. Spread the left arm open, let your head roll to the left. Okay, and feel where the weight of the body is centered, right? So it might not feel like you have a particularly dominant weight on the crossover. It might be sort of blended here. So I'm trying to blend my weight so my left arm is opening just as much as my left leg is crossing to the right. And feel the knees bending, both of them. And now slide the ball away. Then the sand can maybe go to your hamstrings are your shins, so come back into center. If you're comfortable with the sand across your shins, you can bring the knees to your chest. If that's a little bit worrisome for your knee flexion, you can put your sand on the back of the legs, knees to chest. A little easier. It's not pushing down with sheer force to the knee itself, but some of us like that shin, that sandy shin position. So feel the legs press in towards the digestive tract. I really like this one. I actually think I like the hamstring one as well. Sandy hamstrings or sandy shins. Okay, feel the hands either curl around the sand if it's here, or the shin, right, the tibia area. Breathe so there's resistance. You slide the sand away for a moment, and then take the bolster to the left side yard and let the left knee bend. And you might even kind of work with that rolling on the left hip. So the right hip can easily catch over to that bolster. Add the ball. I think I like to add the ball before the sand, but I know I've done both options when I kind of forget the ball sometimes and then add it. So yeah, figure out how you want to be with the ball, huh? Before or after the sand. And then with the ribs moving, depending on how far your sand is on the right leg, you will likely feel a nice amount of circulation in that corridor of the waist. Feel the movement of the breath. Notice where it lands in the ribs, in the lower abdomen. And maybe your head rolls to the right. Yeah, that's interesting body part, right? The movement of your neck and your head. Just it can surely roll, right? And when it rolls, it lets the opposite side gently elongate, even in the neck. Okay, slide the ball, let it roll away in the sand. And this time we'll roll left and we'll come up and still stay low, stay restoring. And then let's take our bolster right next to the wall. I would have your blanket nearby and a blanket for under your head. And if you want to put any socks on, that sounds good to me right now. There's some sock on my feet. Sock up. Okay. All right. So let's take a Viparita Karani pose. So what I want you to access here is the weight of your pelvis and how the legs become weightless first. So you're going to sit with your first thing, you sit on the bolster, and then you're going to move your body to one side of the bolster. You kind of have to be all the way lopsided so the other part of the bolster is lifting up. Okay, now you're going to roll onto that shoulder down and come around so the legs lift up, and then flow the blanket in underneath your full under right up to the shoulder. It should be set really close. This would be a good one where you have this interesting bolster and blanket support, and then what's in the middle is creating quite a bit of interesting circulation in the dynamic here in the center, right in the diaphragm movement. So when I add the sand, so it's a vascular pose, right? It's a cardiovascular pose, this one. It's a pose for the nervous system, a pose for the vascular system. That part makes more sense to me, to be honest, because of what's happening operating wise in your body. Restorative operation. Okay, add some sand, add a blanket if you like. Add a connection of your arms where it's comfortable. Who knows? Maybe you tuck them into the blanket, maybe you let them go down by your sides. The hands should be below the heart. You don't want them higher. Your arms could be a little bit out, but you want your hands low from the arm versus cactus. Okay. So shoulders center back. Do a little bit of work with pushing the shoulders back and in towards the spine to open up the chest. And then taking a long breath in through the nose and exhaling out through the mouth. And just honestly feel the movement cycle of breath. Feel that concentration moving inside. Relax the face, the jaw, the throat. You know, the legs are weighted, right? This is a weighted position for the legs. You can get the feel just simple. You don't have to push the feet any direction or activate the feet, but feel just that weight into them. And then that distribution of weight into the pelvis. And if the pelvis is fairly relaxed, the pelvic floor, then it strengthens back into the spine. There's a little more weight there. You know, we're going to shift, so we'll shift our feet away from the wall, just a small amount. Create that balance. And then bend through the legs. And when you bend through the legs, you're going to reach up, or you could toss your sand. You don't necessarily have to tug on it. You can toss it overhead. We won't hear it. Okay. Just make sure you don't toss it on your pet. Okay, so feel where your feet are at the wall. I like to feel where the knees are pointing right towards my center body and back beyond. And as I, kind of there's a limitless, awareness of that inside spatial connection here. So when you roll to the side, just let it be meaningful enough that there is this twist in the body. And then when you push, you come up and you make your way back to your bolster. You didn't really leave it, did you? I was always next to it the whole class. And let's take a moment where we align the movement of the spine back up out of the pelvis, out of its basin, and find that movement of the shoulders back, centering the heart, and lifting the hands up, placing the feel of the fingers and the hands themselves together. Let the abdomen relax. And let's kind of recharge the focus in the body, right? Setting intention to breathe in wellness to yourself